Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carl Prusa MMA. I am Carl Prusa. Today, I am with UFC 205er. He is Mr. Tuco Tokkos, getting ready for his upcoming UFC Fight Night contest, Iowa, May 3rd, making that return to the cage, taking on Junior Tafa. Tuco, what's up, my friend? How are you doing?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me on the show, man. I'm excited.
Absolutely, man. So, Tuco, you've been doing this for quite a while. Started off other side of the world, across the pond, over in the UK. When you first started doing this, what was the MMA scene like in the UK?
Dude, now I'm getting older. It's like I consider myself a little old school. It was like super underground. It was like not that underground, but it was like we only had a handful of British guys that had ever been in the UFC. And it was like it was still a hard man sport, you know. It wasn't like today where you have like intelligent college educated guys. Like everyone that fought when I was training when I first started, they were all real tough guys, like legit. They had street cred. They were real hard men. So I've really seen the evolution of the sport, I guess, because I've been fighting now 12 years, I think. Which I mean, there's guys been fighting 20 years. Like I have people that are much more senior to me that have double the fights I have. I don't have that many fights, but yeah, it was just different. I never thought the sport would get where it is today.
It's crazy that you mentioned that how much the sport has evolved because
Yeah,
people don't know or they forget. 15, 20 years ago, people were calling this human cockfighting. This was
yeah.
not legal at every place. People thought the people who did this should belong in prison. When you first got into this, your first few fights, in the US at least 15, 20 years ago, the regional scene was the wild, wild west. I mean, I've heard of
Yeah.
guys fighting in bars, barns, mystery opponents, no medicals. Do you have anything crazy like that?
Dude, so in my gym, like I'm teammates with Gerald Meerschaert and Robbie Lawler. I was just talking to them recently, and like Gerald came up fighting up there in Wisconsin or wherever, and he said he had crazy fights. Like both guys weren't even trained, and it was like there was groin strikes, headbutts, like 12 to 6 elbows, soccer kicks, like all manner of things. Even Robbie, like Robbie's got some pictures of him fighting in fucking bars in Iowa, like a ring in a bar. And that's just crazy. Even those guys like becoming record breaking UFC fighters where they came from. I'm much younger than them. But yeah, when I came up, I was fighting like my first fight, my first fight ever was it was in like a shitty little week in England we call it a leisure center, like a sports hall, like a basketball fucking court in a high school here. But then my first professional fight was on a show called Ultimate Cage, UCMMA. It was formerly Cage Rage, which they actually had some legit guys come off there. The promoter was a guy called Dave O'Donnell. He was a real like London gangster, shaved head, like real like fucking gold tooth. But they had great guys. He had great guys go to the UFC from his show. Anderson Silva, Vitor made his comeback from there. Like there was crazy guys on that show. So they could always put on a good show. And the crowd in England, I tell everyone this, like the crowd in London when you're coming up is just unrivaled. And we make jokes in our gym because Linton Vassell is a teammate of mine. He fought on the same show, and like there's like you're fighting in front of like 2,000 fucking gypsies, and they're like real traveler, like crazy people. And we always say like, oh, do we think Shavkat could fight in front of that crowd? Or would it get to him? You know, there's people throwing stuff in the cage and hurling abuse at you, and you might have to fight when you come out the cage, like in the crowd. It was real rough.
I think one thing's really cool about mixed martial arts, it's so global. I mean, there's
Yeah.
athletes all across the world. But a common occurring thing is you see a lot of guys moving to the US, some of the big gyms here to train. You're no exception. What was that whole ordeal like? What was it like moving everything from the UK and finding your home in the US?
So I first came to visit in like 2016, I think, and at that time, around that time, Black Zillions just ended. The previous owner, he died, and so the gym got closed down and the team kind of got disbanded. The Brazilians kind of ran off, and there was only that core that got kept together, like 10 or 12 guys that went with the coaches, Henry Hooft and Greg Jones. And they were training at a small gym just to keep the team going. And I'd seen them on Instagram, so I just rocked up there one day when I was visiting family in Florida, I just walked in there and Henry was like, well, we're sparring in 5 minutes. You got your shit? And I just fucking sparred. My first rounds were with Luke Rockhold when he was still good, Kamaru, Stefan Struve, Jason Jackson, just like killers. Volkan Ozdemir, it was like killers, man. They beat the brakes off me. They beat the absolute dog shit out of me. But then Henry was like, yeah, you're good. You can train with us. And that was that. I was on the team from then 8 years ago, 9 years ago now.
You know, it's crazy when you look at that team over the years. They definitely evolved. Obviously, one time they were called Hard Knocks 365. Now
Yeah,
the Stanford MMA. Now Killcliff FC. And you look at the talent on there. I mean, we could spend this whole show talking about who's on that team. I mean,
yeah,
so many UFC guys that they're not in the UFC
yeah,
yet. They're going to be very
yeah.
soon. What's it like being able to every single day train with those people?
Dude, I always say this, that we have the big names that everyone's heard of, you know, the Michael Chandlers, Gilbert Burns, Kamaru Usman, like Shavkat, again and again. There was one time we had like 7 of the top 10 welterweights in the gym. Like we had Kamaru, he was the champ, Gilbert, Bilal, Shavkat, Ian Gary, Vicente Luque. Like we had everyone in the gym. Um, and they're the guys we've all heard of, right? But I've trained with so many guys who are absolute murderers and you will never hear of them, you know? Some stay, some go. But even now, we have this next wave of guys coming up. And I always tell sponsors and promoters and stuff, I'm like, hey, I know you guys want the interview with this guy or you want to sponsor this guy. Trust me, get on these young kids now because we got kids that are like 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. And they're, I don't want to say names, they slaughter the seasoned pros. Like, they slaughter them. These kids are just next level, man. Absolute murderers. We got like 10, 15 of them, and they're all 5-0 or under, and they're all like in their teens and early 20s, and they are going to be the best fighters out there, man. They're so good.
You know,
And
mixed
they're from,
martial arts has really evolved over the years. And I think one thing 15, 20 years ago, if you were a brawler, if you were a fighter, you could come do MMA and you can make a living. Now it's such an entertainment personality driven phenomenon. You have guys now put on characters. They are people they're
yeah.
not because they know they're going to get title shots. They're going to make the UFC money. They're going to dry eyeballs. They're going to get fed hand-picked opponents. How do you think personality and entertainment has affected combat sports?
100%. I don't know if it directly comes from wrestling or if it's just from social media or whatever, but yeah, 100%. You see that with guys, you know. Not to say these guys don't have talent, but the guys that have flair, they're going to sell more pay-per-views, you know. They're going to bring more endorsements. So it's like that Conor McGregor effect. But you can't blame the promoter or the promotion or even those fighters because I always think this when I'm about to walk out. I'm like, what is the name of the game? It is entertainment, right? Everyone, the TV cameras, the crowd, the sponsors, everyone working here, it all centers around the two fighters who are fighting for everyone's entertainment, right? To bring viewers. The people working, the sponsors, the TV company, it's all about viewers, right? It's all about eyes on the fight. So that's the same with that entertainment aspect, you know. Whether it's them talking and people want to see what the guy's gonna say or what he's gonna do, it's no different from seeing what he's gonna do as a fighter. So that's just part of the game, you know. I don't think I'm boring, so I'm not worried about it. But there's guys that are boring, but they're great fighters. But that sucks for them. Like that's the middle ground, right? But then I'm not the best fighter because I have life experience and I'm not boring. So it's like you got amazing fighters that are boring. But then there's those guys that kind of like they even navigate that well. You got guys like Shavkat that don't even say a single word, and people love him because he has this mystique about him. They want to hear the 3 words that he says. Like, what's he gonna say? So it's like I don't know. You just have to make it work for you. It sucks if you're that boring that you got nothing to say. But yeah, I don't know.
You know,
That's,
a big byproduct of this whole entertainment personality driven phenomenon is a term we now use called the casual fans. So
yeah,
these are the fans, they're usually drunk. You find them at B-dubs, they're in the cheap
yeah,
seats, they like to yell, twist them, the you know what, you're
yeah.
a crotch sniffer, all this crazy stuff, right? Overall, what do you think of these people? Does it make you laugh?
Again, I mean, they're no different from the fan that knows everything. It's like they just got 2 sets of eyes. If they're buying the pay-per-view, if they're buying ESPN Plus subscription, and they have just as right to do whatever they want, say whatever they want. You know, they have two sets of eyes, so they have the same value as the fan that knows everything. You know, I personally do appreciate it when it does get taxing. Even today, I'm in the elevator and some guy's like, "Are you a UFC fighter?" I was like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Oh, where'd you fight?" And I'm like, "In the UFC." You just asked if I'm a UFC fighter. I am. He's like, "Oh, I just thought," like he thinks the sport's called UFC, so it's like, oh god. But so I do appreciate it when if someone in the grocery store actually knows about fighting and they're like, "Oh, I saw your last fight," or "Oh, what do you think about this guy and this guy?" I'm like, "Oh, I enjoy those conversations more than with casuals." But when it comes down to it, they got two sets of eyes, man. They're just another buyer, another fan, right? Whether you're a casual or a fucking watched every UFC since the first one, you can only sit in one seat.
Absolutely. Very good point. So obviously before the UFC debut, doing some really big things on the regional scene, was able to
Mm.
win some professional titles. And then you got that call. Where were you? Who told you that you were signed to the UFC?
Dude, so yeah, I mean, I've fought all over the world. I've fought in America, I've fought in South America, Europe, Asia. I actually was going to UAE Warriors in Abu Dhabi to corner two of my teammates, Emiliano Sordi and Andre Fiallo. I landed there off of a 16-hour flight, and I think it was like 26 hours journey from when I left my house to get to the hotel. And then I got the call. They were like, turn around, go back to the airport. And I was like, I'm in Abu Dhabi. They're like, so what? Get on the flight. And I got to Vegas on like Wednesday and then had to Thursday cut weight for my debut. But I kind of just washed that away. I still thought I was going to win that fight. I was like, fuck it. And even in the fight, like I was talking shit and everyone roasted me online. But like I honestly was like, oh, this guy can't submit me. I was like, that's what he came to do and he can't do it. I was chill. But then as the fight went on, the weight cut, the travel, I was like, fuck, I was zapped. And I couldn't fight the choke. I was embarrassed to get submitted, but it is what it is.
You know, I think so many casual fans watch the sport and they look at the big names, right? They look at the Shavkats, the John Jones,
Yeah,
the Usmans, and they're like, wow, it must be amazing to be a fighter. This is the greatest life ever. Little they know, battling on the regional scene, you're losing money. Most guys have a
yeah,
9 to 5 jobs. You throw a wife in
yeah,
there, you throw kids in there. Pay to train, have to pay management, have to pay coaches. Even when you make the big shows, you're not making Ray Lewis and Joe Flacco money
yeah,
quite yet. I mean, it takes a while to get there. You've been doing this for such a long time, man. You've missed birthdays, weddings, Thanksgivings, dinners, all
yeah.
this crazy stuff, family members, just to chase the dream. What's made you keep going, kicking and screaming for the last 12 years?
Do you know what? I might disappoint you with this answer, but I'm not really like one of these guys who I wasn't training when I was a kid being like, oh, I'm going to be in the UFC one day, you know? I was just I've had a whole life, you know, and I just couldn't help fighting. Like Vicente Luque asked me because he's a very religious man and he's very dedicated. He asked me the other day, we were hitting pads together, and he said, "What's your why?" And I was like, "My why is like, why not?" You know, he was asking like, "Why do we do this? Why do we do all this training and give our lives and our health and our body, and like you said, miss all these family commitments and these moments, like to put ourselves through hellish weight cuts, fight camps, take years off our life, damage our brains, our bodies in the fight permanently." And I was like, why not? Like, I can't help but do it, you know. I can't be me and not have ever fought, you know. I have to fight. Like, I'm a fighter, and it just so happens I got to fight on the biggest stage that you can fight, real fighting. I mean, I'm not fighting for a WBC fucking boxing belt and all this shit, but anyone who knows about fighting knows like fighting in the UFC is the realest fighting you can do. Um, so for me, like I came up and I was just training as a hobby really in the daytime. My mum's from Brazil, so I started jujitsu. I was like, oh, I should do jujitsu. Like, and I was good at jiu-jitsu and I went through the belts and I won a lot of tournaments. And then my coaches were kind of like, oh, don't be a pussy, like have an MMA fight, you're tough. So I started fighting MMA and then I was like 5-0 with all finishes and Bellator picked me up. But then I lost a couple. Like I moved to America and I had a long layoff and got a couple short notice fights and like they kind of fucked me over. B League, Bellator. And then after that, I was like, I'm kind of done. I was 30 and I was kind of like, I've done it now. I'm not really bothered. And then, do you know who it was? It was Brendan Allen, because he's my boy. I've always cornered him the last 15 fights or something. And he submitted Carl Robertson in the first show after COVID, Jacksonville, when Kamaru knocked out Masvidal. And after the fight, he was taking pictures, right? You take pictures after you win a UFC fight. And he looked at me and he said, bro, you could be here. And I never forget, I was like, what? He goes, you could do this. Like, you could fight in the UFC. And I remember looking at him thinking, bro, you're crazy. Like, what do you mean? How could I fight in the UFC? Like, what are you talking about? And he said to me, for real, man, like, you're good. I know. I train with you. Like, you're good enough. And I was like, so he's the one who made, I wasn't going to fight again. He was like, you got to fight again. Like, just try one more time. So then he got me a fight at 205, finished the guy. He got me another fight in Fury, finished the guy. Then they were like, oh, we want you to fight for the title. Finished the guy. And it was like, oh, fuck, I am good.
Absolutely. The last time out, you were able to fight in Tampa. Florida now become an adopted home of yours. What was it like to be
Yeah.
able to fight in Florida in the UFC?
I thought it was gonna be amazing, but it was more of a headache, man. There was too many people there. Like on the fight week, everyone wanted to hang out and see me. I'm excited. Just today, the UFC sent me like the ticket link that they send to fighters. I just deleted it straight away. I was like, no one's coming. I'm just going to the fight in fucking Iowa and fighting. I don't want people coming to visit and people calling me the day before. Yeah, bro, how can we get to the weigh-ins and da 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 da? Dude, it sucks fighting where you live. I'm gonna say that it sucks, you know.
Obviously that one was a sanctioned UFC bout in Florida.
Yeah,
Some fans may know, some fans may not know, you almost got yourself into another bout in Florida last year at a casino involved with Brandon Allen against a guy who's fighting tomorrow in Mr.
jeez.
Marvin Vittori. I think the video, you see Big Chase Sherman trying to break people
Yeah,
up. It's like one of the funniest things ever. How the hell did you get yourself in that predicament?
dude, I wasn't even there. That guy just looks like me. I don't even know what that was
Oh,
about.
it's a clone. It's a lookalike.
Yeah, I heard they was just scrapping over there. I don't know, man. People was talking shit and people got smacked. I don't know. I wasn't even there, man. I was eating ice cream. I was at Gerald Mearshot's house. We was playing Nintendo. Um, but yeah, that fight tomorrow. Marvin, you know what? I like Marvin as a person. He's European. Like, if we've met before and we've been cool. We've had dinners and shit. We have the same manager. Um, and if we all met in a different circumstance, we'd all be cool, you know? And like, I was cool with him. But this sport puts people under a lot of pressure, man. And like you said, they need to fight to feed their families and it's their livelihood. So it'll make you do crazy things and say crazy things to try to get a foot up. But Marvin, I don't know how he does it. How he's it like apparently if you're inactive for a certain amount of time, you're supposed to get kicked from the rankings anyway. This guy has one win in the last 4 years. Like, and then even comparing him to Brendan, because people compare them because they talk shit and they've been matched up. Brendan has 7 wins in the last 4 years. Like, it's crazy that Marvin managed to stay in the top 10, that fifth, sixth. Like, I don't know how. He really ain't beat no one. He's got one finish in the UFC. He's 8-5 in the division. It's insane to me how he manages to stay there. That's why I can't wait for this AI ranking shit. Because I don't know what the fucking journalists are smoking, like, for these rankings. There's people that stay there that just shouldn't be there. It's crazy to me.
So you're getting ready to do a battle in the UFC once again, taking on Junior Tafa, going all
Yeah.
the way to Iowa, Midwest contest. Overall, what do you think of Junior as an opponent here?
I mean, he's dangerous. He fucking bangs. He's got power. He's coming down from heavyweight. I was a middleweight, so hopefully there won't be like a power discrepancy there. Um, yeah, I've seen he's been training for a while. Like I've seen videos of him that he's been training to get down to light heavy way before this fight. So yeah, you know what he's gonna bring. He's gonna come and bang and try and take your head off. You know. So yeah, I respect him. I've heard good things about them. I like the kind of vibe. You know, him and his brother, their little gang that they got. I fuck with that. So it's all respect. We're just gonna go in there and bang and see what happens, man.
You feel like this is the type of contest, if you can weather a storm for about 2.5 minutes, you're at a great advantage?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm happy with the matchup because like I said, UFC gave me two undefeated prospects in the first two fights. I feel like this is just a fight. Like they don't have a horse in the race. Like they don't want any of us to win per se. Like they just want a good fight this time round. Whereas the last two fights, I felt like they wanted my opponents to win. They're trying to build these guys up. So yeah, I'm excited for this one, man. I think it's a good fight.
Coming into this one now, third one, looking for the first win in the UFC. Is that something you're thinking about, or are you just approaching this like any other fight?
No, for sure. I know my back's against the wall. I know I have to win this fight, to keep my job. So yeah, I'm serious.
So going to Iowa, what do you know about Iowa? You ever been there?
Nothing. I know Robbie Lawler's from there, so we'll see. I think it's like cornfields and all that. I don't know.
There you go. So before I let you go here, I want to pick your brain on some big fights coming up so you
Go
get your
ahead.
predictions. So big one coming up here in a couple of weeks. We got Sean Brady taking on Leon Edwards. Who does Tuco got here?
So say that again. Who have I got?
Yeah, Sean Brady or Leon?
So obviously Leon's my countryman. I'm a big fan of Leon. I think he's an incredible fighter. Sean Brady's my boy. I go and train up in Philly. I got family up there. I love Sean. They asked me to go to London to show them around, but then I got this fight. So I've been talking to them and helping them plan some stuff. I think if Sean can get his hands on him, he's a different animal, man. I've trained with Sean, like he ragdolls light heavyweights. Like that motherfucker's so strong and his back is fucking huge. And he's so dedicated. Like he don't put a foot wrong. He don't put a bad fucking bean in his body. This guy gets on the cross bike, on the assault bike, and he just goes till it maxes out at 1,000 calories. He could be on it for 90 minutes. Like, yeah, he's so dedicated and he really wants it. I think that Bilal loss gave him like a new fire. And now it looks good there because that's the champ. So it's like his only loss is to the champ. Um, he's also my boy. Shout out Bilal. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we all know that Leon's dangerous. He's a great striker and he's dangerous and he has good takedown defense. But I think if Sean is as prepared as he will be, there's nothing Bilal done that Sean can't do to him. If he can get a hold of him, it will be the same outcome, I feel.
How about Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett?
Oh, I love Paddy again. That's my countryman. I love me some Paddy. We always have a good laugh when I see him, but Michael's my teammate. I think Paddy's a lot bigger, but I'm not sure Paddy has like the striking acumen to really hurt Mike like Oliveira and these other guys have from the outside. But yeah, I mean, Mike's got that power, man, and Paddy has his chin up and his hands down. So I can see Mike catching him big. Um, but and Paddy's been using his jiu-jitsu to win a lot of fights. And I don't know if Michael doesn't has great anti-jiu-jitsu. Like you saw him when he beat Brent Primus, who has an amazing guard. He can stay in the guard of anyone, and beat them up and wrestle and control them with his like stocky frame and his strength. Um, yeah, I can see Mike winning that, but Paddy's got magic, he can pull something out of the bag at any time. So we'll see what the MMA gods decide.
Jack Della or Bilal?
Bilal all day, man. I think if you've seen some performances from Jack Della, like he's looked great against some guys, and then other guys have made him look average. And you can't be looking average against Bilal. I always say this, right? And people criticize me and say I'm an idiot, but like, I know Bilal, he's a good friend of mine, right? And I personally don't think Bilal has any talent physically. Like physically, I don't think he's the strongest or the fastest or has the best striking, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, anything. But his talent is that his mind is so strong and he is the most dedicated, well prepared. His strategy, his game plan, his dedication, his self-belief make him unbeatable. Literally, you could get anyone, the best striker on the earth, the best wrestler, whatever. He's going to beat them. He's going to beat them because he mixes it up. It's like Kamaru used to say, he mixes it up better than anybody. And that's why Bilal will beat pretty much anyone, man. I think he will cut through Jack. Jack would have to catch him early with the boxing, but I just don't feel like Bilal's going to be there. He'll get his arms tired, and Bilal has a game plan already for everyone in the division in his mind, you know? And he's genuinely a really good person. So I think that favors him.
All right, last one. I think the toughest one here. Diego Lopez or Volk?
Damn, I think I love Volk. That's my Greek brother. But Diego, that's my Brazilian cousin, and he's got the sauce right now, man. I think he's dangerous, and I think it comes down to how much damage has been done to Volk in the last few fights, because he's been knocked out twice in the last two fights, right? He got knocked out twice, right? Islam and
Yeah,
then
Islam and
Poirier.
Ilya.
So Diego bangs, and he has good jiu-jitsu. I'd like to see Volk go back to the Volk that we saw early on his title run when he used to wrestle people and smash them. I think that would be his best plan. I think he's too old and a bit too chinny now to be the Volk that we saw against Holloway and like that was bouncing around, boxing, getting in and out. I think that's too dangerous against Diego Lopez because Diego just throws the kitchen sink and he throws everything hard and it's unorthodox. So I think, but Diego has great jiu-jitsu. I think Volk has to have a real good game plan, wrestle him, control him, get him tired, and wear him down and win by decision. But I think Diego's got the sauce right now, man. I think he catches him with something.
Do you think you'll be doing mixed martial arts or at least in it, fighting, competing, coaching, watching, commentating, something for the rest of your life?
I don't know, man. I love the sport, but and I know I'm a smart guy and I have a good mouth and I can speak eloquently and I have a great mind for this stuff. But I could do it for any sport. I could do it for anything. I could act. I could do anything. But yeah, I don't know. It's whatever I decide, really. I've had a long life. Like, I'm still pretty young, but I feel old, man. I don't mind just chilling. We'll see. We'll see what happens. If there's an opportunity there, I'll take it. But that's my secret. Like, that's a universal principle. Like, if you chase something too much, it will run. You have to kind of just be the best you, and the opportunities will come to you.
You know, is it kind of crazy to think, man, you've been doing this for 12 years and in that time you've won professional titles, you've fought at some of the biggest organizations in the world,
Mhm.
you've called the United States your home, trained with some of the best to ever do it in the UFC. Is it kind of crazy to look back and see where the journey's come at this point?
100%, man. Even when I made my debut, I remember I was on the bus, my UFC debut, and I was just thinking about where I came from, where I grew up. You know, I grew up in council housing, which is a Section 8 housing in America. And I was thinking about all my buddies that just dropped out or have died or in jail or whatever. And I was like, wow, man, I really fucking made it here, you know? I got a little emotional on the bus. The sun was setting in Vegas. I was like, wow, I'm here.
What do you think are some of the biggest things that you learned about yourself from mixed martial arts?
The thing about fighting is like training's one thing, right? And I always tell myself when I'm in the gym because I have some of my best friends ever that I've met at the gym, and I think like I could have just as easily been at ATT or another gym or anywhere else in the world, but that is one of the best things. Like I've got to spend my life, my day-to-day life, with some great people, and I've made some of the best friends and had some of the best memories and moments and experiences that shape you for all areas of your life. Like in your relationships, parenting, romantically, business, whatever. MMA trains you for all of that stuff, you know? It's cliche, like the dedication and consistency and perseverance and coming back and all that. But I think the best thing about fighting is that you really get to know yourself. It's such a roller coaster, like everything from the weight cut to the weigh-in to the walkout, the warm-up, being in the fight. But when they lock that cage door and you're alone and you're on your own, truly, um, yeah, the moment is quite profound because you look at your opponent and you're like, you know that he wants to take your head off and you want to take his head off. And it's the only person that truly is honest and they show you all their cards and their agenda. Like, I know you want to kill me and I want to kill you. So, and you see yourself in your opponent, and it's like, it's a raw moment, man. But I love it because you get to know yourself. You're like, who am I? What am I made of? You know what I mean? Because you never really know who people are in this world. So, and most people don't even know who they are. So if you don't even know yourself, how can you know anything else? So you really get to know yourself when you fight.
For you, what does it mean to call yourself a martial artist?
I mean, I grew up watching kung fu movies, and that's what gave me my moral compass, man. Like watching real kung fu movies. Um, that's what taught me about honor and respect and loyalty and all this kind of shit. So for me, I like to draw from that traditional martial arts kind of area, and I like that part of it. You know, I feel like a man's morals, you can learn them from martial arts.
There you go. Well, Tuco, last question for you, my friend. In a perfect world, what is the outcome on May 3rd when you make your return to the UFC Octagon, taking on Junior Tafa?
A TKO in the first round, man. Yeah, catch him with the right hand or the left hook. Bop, bop, bop.
There you go. Well, Tuco, thank you, my friend. I really appreciate your time tonight. Can't wait to see you fight. I think it's going to be unbelievable. I think someone's coming away with the knockout of the night in that one.
Let's go. Thank you, man. Hopefully me.
Absolutely. That's it for us tonight. I'm Carl Peruzza. He is Mr. Tuco Tokkos, taking on Junior Tafa May 3rd, Iowa. Don't miss it. Take it easy, fight fans.
Let's go.